Okay, guys, so today we're going to be discussing the idea of timelessness in a novel. Timelessness is an attribute that is attributed to only a certain number of books. Those books can be fairly recent or hundreds of years old, but the common attributes in these books is that they remain with us today and that new generations of people can still find something to learn from these books. So today we will dwell into Frankenstein, and we will see the lessons in it that it will endure forever and that make it timeless. So the driving question of this entire thing will be, is Frankenstein timeless? But before we do that, we have to discuss what is timelessness in a novel. While there are many attributes to timelessness, I've decided to limit it to just three sections. Number one, the morals, revelations to people of the human condition that the book reveals. Number two, the lessons, situations that invoke human struggles that take a practical stance. How you use the morals to live out the life in the novel. And three, its attributes. Is it just a fantastic piece of literature? Is it the next Shakespearean play? Is it the next epic poem? So these are some attributes that I feel make a book timeless. And my goal is to try to convince you that Frankenstein is all of these. So these are the reasons why I think Frankenstein is timeless. It brilliantly portrays a thematic struggle in life, created versus creator. The monster's struggles bring sympathy to anyone reading it. It leads us down the dark forest of guilt, of autonomy versus collectivism, neutrality versus responsibility. It makes great use of society and the burden and blessing of being a part of it. Okay, so the first one that I decided to go with was the thematic struggle, and this is by far my favorite. The war between Victor and his monster began when it first opened its eyes. Since its inception, there was a war between the creator and the created. The mention of the classical Paradise Lost will forever link Victor and his monster to God and his Adam. Many themes encompass this one fact: creativity, human destiny, and arrogance. Where God made Adam beautiful and physically perfect, Victor's monster was ugly and destined to die. Where Adam was created in glory and love, the monster was made in vanity. While God had created a perfect partner for Adam Eve, Victor failed even to do that for his monster. While Victor abandoned his creation, God never abandoned his. In all, this moral and theme contrasts the two creators and their creations and shows Victor's completely lacking. This will be used to escalate the plot. Especially the first 2 points on this page, I want you to pay special attention to. The second part of the first one says that the monster was made in vanity, while Adam in Paradise Lost was made for a much higher purpose. The monster was made simply to be created. After that, it didn't have a purpose in life. The only purpose it could have found in life was the love of its creator, and it didn't even get that. So I want you to take that into perspective when we go into the rest of this section and then the ongoing section, because this is probably one of the most relevant things in the whole novel. While God had created a perfect partner for Adam and Eve, Victor failed even to do that for his monster. In fact, this last confrontation with Victor is the one that instigated Victor's death. The monster wanted nothing more than a perfect partner like he read in Paradise Lost, and Victor couldn't do that. In this video, there are some quotes from the book Paradise Lost. In case you guys didn't know, Frankenstein had found Paradise Lost in a satchel on the side of the road and decided and learned the language and read the book. So keep in mind that all of these quotes are quotes that he would have read from the book. Alright, that'll be enough. We're not going to go into much more of that. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, a lot of those quotes were very irrelevant. But the reason I showed that video is because some of them do hold some relevance to the monster's thought processes. Here's some of the ones I got from that short little clip. The first one, for man to tell how human life began is hard, for who himself beginning knew. This is a question the monster might have asked himself while reading the book. He doesn't know how he was created. He doesn't know why he was created. All he knows is that he was created and his creator ran away. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. The the social isolation that the monster went into, even though being a part of society, his role was being completely isolated from him. Um, he had to find sanity and a safe haven in his own mind, and definitely he made a hell of heaven as best he could in his mind. And the third one, to be weak is miserable, doing or suffering. While that one might seem a bit vague, the general idea behind it is that you have to justify your existence. If you're not doing anything, you're suffering. So Victor's monster had to justify its existence. That was almost as guaranteed as it coming to life. Once it was alive, you need to justify your existence. And the monster could do that in one or two ways, and we're going to discuss those later. Okay, the second part is applications to life. We can sympathize with the monster because no one wants to be alone. This is a quote from the monster. I have love in me the likes of which you can scarcely imagine, and rage the likes of which you would not believe. If I cannot satisfy the one, I will indulge the other. This is basically saying that he has two options for justifying his existence. He could either love unconditionally or hate with an unburning passion towards Victor. And this would all depend on how Victor treated the monster. The unfathomable loneliness the monster felt was unbearable. In its quest for connections, it found none. While looking for a partner, it found enemies. Where it looked for love, it found hate. This is the struggle of the monster and society. Being so completely out of touch with society is something that the monster got used to after a while as a dull ache, but it's not something that he enjoyed at all. In fact, this is the main reason why he wanted a Eve for himself, one that Victor would provide for him. Since society couldn't offer him a better relationship, he would ask his creator for one, but Victor couldn't do that for him. This right here is a quote, an article that would deal with social isolation and the damaging effects of it. I hope that the screen is bright enough for you guys. Stupid hat. I'm just going to scroll down very slowly so you can get every word. If you have trouble keeping up, you can always stop the video and do that. Oh. Okay, so I know that was really fast, but like I said before, just pause the video if you couldn't keep up. So now we get into why the monster did what it did. and it did what it did because it was driven to do it. Most readers only find fault with the monster through the letter of the law. The monster had to kill and destroy, or else its life would have been more meaningless than it was. So the driving question beyond all this, the monster earned its damnation through its actions. What once was a creature of scientific genius has turned into a devil. Its damnation was destined ever since its creator abandoned it. And the thing that people find most riveting about the monster is because this situation is not impossible. I don't think that it's ever happened to anyone, but it's not impossible that you just go through life years with no companionship and no one to look upon. That because that such a situation might seem devastating to us. So the question would be, do we see ourselves in this monster? What are we, if not a product of our culture and society? Are we monsters deep inside, where companionship and love are among the few things keeping us sane? Would we do what the monster did? Would we justify our actions by what the monster did, saying we had to do something or our lives would have been meaningless? Alright, and the last section, Victor and his monster. Frankenstein and his monster share a bond of mutual hatred. The monster is the manifestation of the negative in Frankenstein, his worst nightmare in a sense. I don't think that that is a completely unique statement, but it is one that I thought of on my own, and I think it's one that is frankly quite interesting. So we're going to look into it a little more. The inner demon manifest. While Frankenstein was handsome and socially acceptable, his own creation was not. He had to remember the horrid face for the rest of his life. While he immediately regretted his monstrous creation and wanted to remove responsibility, the monster was there at every turn, confirming its existence. While Victor wanted to gain autonomy from his monster, clean his hands so to say, he fell into convulsions from guilt over the monster's actions. While he insisted on a neutral stance with the monster in the beginning, its aggression left him with no choice but to kill him. Finally, while Victor wanted to kill his creation in order to live the rest of his life in sanity, the monster got to him first. He was killed by his own and earned his damnation in that way. Those are some very good points that I had just brought up. It compared with the such contrast between the two characters, we can see why Victor hated his monster, especially towards the end. The monster represented everything that Victor either hated about himself or hated about life in general. While Victor didn't want to take responsibility, the monster left him with no choice. While Victor did not want to become guilty by association through his own guilt or by the letter of the law, that didn't stop him from falling into convulsions. When he heard that his brother was killed by the monster, he fell into a terrible sickness and had massive seizures, so to say. So the monster was linked with him in a way. His actions um, were directly correlated with Victor's response, and Victor hated that about the monster. This is a quote from Victor Frankenstein. I took refuge in the courthouse belonging to the house which I inhabited, where I remained during the rest of the night, walking up and down in the greatest agitation, listening attentively, catching and fearing each sound as if it were to announce the approach of the demoniacal corpse to which I have so miserably given life. The effects of this. Victor's actions and creations damned him internally. His life was in shambles, and he was a step off the cliff of sanity. Killing the monster was as destined as its creation. Victor had no choice, but even in this last thing he couldn't do that. His monster killed him, and with him gone, the monster forfeited its life, saying it's ready to die. The mutual hatred that they shared for one another was also one of life. With Victor gone, the monster would have died. And I'm certain that if the monster would have died, Victor would have died right along with it. The monster became part of the monster became part of Victor during the course of the plot. And this relationship is one, it's very unique. It's the first of its kind, and I don't think that the kind of relationship has ever been made again, nor should it, because that would take away from an epic piece of literature. And this all ties into the 3 points that I said, with the introduction of Paradise Lost, Victor being the creator, the monster being abandoned by the creator and having to justify its actions and its existence, and the monster and Victor going through life with this bond of hatred that eventually led to both of their deaths. And to this day, literary critics cannot still argue about whether the monster is the internally damned Adam or Satan. So your perspective on that could change as you read the book, whether the monster was Adam or Satan, a creation by God that simply fell from grace, or a demonic corpse that earned its damnation through its actions. I hope that I did a very good job at convincing you that Frankenstein is timeless. It appeals to our sense of belonging because no one wants to be alone. We can sympathize with the monster, even though it has done terrible things. It makes us think of big life issues. Um, for this one is a little more all-encompassing. This one, I think it can even go as vague as current things that we have created that we now call master in that sense. Whether it could be technology, a philosophical idea, but is it timeless? You have to tell me.